Meeting is recorded. Okay. Right. So normally, actually, supposedly, if we have physical classes for about usually usually Dr. Lim will set up about 6 physical classes. Okay. But if you go according to the calculation of MQA minimum requirement, we basically need about I'll just off this. We basically need about 4 per subject. Some subjects actually have a bit less classes, like for example RP and all that. So that's why she actually put a little bit more for the normal classes, the core classes. So actually by right about 4 classes is enough for physical. So that's why with the 6 physical classes, we're doing like 4 physical classes and also 2 online classes. That's why this afternoon we are doing online classes. And then tomorrow afternoon, I think we will do, because me and Dr. Ambrose actually have a switch. I'm supposed to take you for session number 1, which is the legal systems in Malaysia. That is a very general topic and a lot of introduction as well. So that one I have done. I've done some pre-recorded. So we had a switch because he wanted to not have full day like what we're doing today. Like if he's going to do a full day, it's going to be very tiring for him. So we had a switch. So he did the first 2 classes with you in February, I think, and then 2, like this. So that's, we did a bit of rearrangements. That's why we had this sort of flow today. But like I said, because everybody is in the group with the other lecturers and all that, Dr. Ling did mention that, like don't try to be too particular. I mean, like we don't want to talk about a lot of things, specifically in the big group. So that's why I get Law to be the representative to actually contact you guys, yeah. So today we're going to do a physical class, not physical class, like online face-to-face. And tomorrow morning, you still have to come back for the physical classes, which is going to be Dr. Ambrose again from 8 to 2 p.m. And I think he will finish early a little bit. And tomorrow afternoon, you can just, after class, go for your lunch and, just enjoy your weekend first. I will post up the pre-recorded maybe on Monday or more or less tomorrow. But tomorrow, I need you all to come back to take attendance as well from 3 to 6. So that one will be pre-recorded classes. I think we actually have more than enough already for the whole weekend in that sense. And yeah, so just take your afternoon off if you want to. But come back at 3 p.m. Or we can do it a bit later if you want. Just let me know. We will take the attendance with using the same link today, and then to take attendance for tomorrow afternoon 3 to 6. Okay, so I think we see a lot of each other so far in this program. But I think this is it. After this, I won't be seeing you anymore for any other classes, especially those people who joined last semester. So those people who have joined this particular semester, first semester, by the way, I'm Dr. Ting here, Ting. I'm taking you mainly for project management, quality management, and also contract and legislation. So these 3 subjects, I think that is already quite a lot in a way. Yeah, so a bit too much for me. I think you'll be very sick of me after this already. Yeah. So this is I will put in my email later on in the chat group so that you can contact me via email. And you can also find me in the group, the student group. And Law also has many people from last semester would have my number also. So yeah, you can always get my number. But email, you can always email me. I'm quite fast normally in responding to email. So I think we have got a few new students from this semesters, and mostly are old students from last semester and the previous semesters. So some of you are part-timer. I'm already losing track of who is who already actually, because we do have some part-timers, and that is a bit problematic sometimes because you may belong to like 5 semesters ago. But very clearly remember there are people from October, and there are some people from June last year. Yeah. And we're in the February SAM this year. Okay, so for those of you who are, I won't be seeing you at all next semester because I don't teach anything in the third semesters, but I'll see you back again if you actually have, you're actually just registered this semesters in the October sessions, or if you're a part-timer, you see me for project management or quality management in October later on, okay, this year. Okay, so essentially for this particular program, this particular course, okay, I'll just give you a brief run through today. I'm not sharing any screen at the moment, okay, so I'm just talking, okay, and I will later on share the notes and everything in a while, but just to give you an idea, because we did not do any sort of introduction classes that much during the first week that I actually gone online with you, because most of the time was left to Dr. Ambrose to start his class. Okay, so essentially this is called 6133, legislative issues and also contract management. Again, this is quite a difficult subject to teach for us because we are talking about a lot of profession here, such as civil, mechanical, electrical, and then we also have people from QSs, and also, I don't know, there's no architecture, I think. So yes, not everybody is in the construction industry. Not everybody is from civil engineering industry. So when we talk about some of the contractual points or legislative issues, we try to be general. We try, like for example, for legislative issues, we are covering things that is as much related to engineering. But of course, you are welcome to give us feedback on maybe something that you have experienced before and you would like to learn that sort of legislative acts or anything contractual point from your work point of view. I mean, we will take notes because from what we have for these 14 LUs, what we need to do is to give people that is usually applicable to all the engineering. For example, contract acts. Okay, and contract acts is about formation of contract, which is basically related to what we'll be talking about today onwards. And then we'll be talking about, we have talked about the formation of the contract with Dr. Ambrose. And then we've also spoken about, I think today you've gone through environmental acts, I think, which is applicable to most engineers in the industry. Okay, whether you're mechanical or whether you're chemical or whether you are from civil, I think environmental acts is something that is a bit more and more coming up. In fact, it's a lot coming up. Some of you are actually environmental engineers, I believe, and then you need to also deal a lot with NREBs and the DOE, Department of Environment. And I think these are all applicable acts, okay? And then also we are also having OSHA, which is Occupational Health and Safety Act, okay, which is dealing a lot with occupational safety and health. Again, that is very, very applicable whether you're from manufacturing, whether you're from civil, or whether you're from mechanical or electrical or QSs maybe, yeah. Not so much applicable for QSs maybe, but then definitely very applicable to architects and engineers, I believe. So OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Acts, that will cover a lot of things as well. Majorly is the acts, but the acts itself also is not really applicable to just engineering alone. In fact, OSHA acts is supposed to be for a lot of industries actually, yeah, including corporate, commercials, and all that. So I think that is what you've been covering today. Maybe not finished, then you'll be covered tomorrow as well. And then Dr. Ambrose will also come back and cover with you on building ordinances, okay, and the difference between ordinances and acts. Acts is a legislative thing which is supposed to be applicable for the whole country, okay. It's a law for the whole country, and the ordinances are actually mainly for the state itself. So if you're from Sabah or West Malaysia, I think that may not be so applicable because we are here covering mainly on the Sarawak building ordinances, okay? And but it's okay. I think the root is similar. It comes from similar areas, similar things, okay? So I think to get a basic idea will be good, and also that will actually make you to be more receptive to learning yourself as well. For example, you learn about Sarawak building ordinances, land codes, and all that. That will actually help you in terms of understanding what is in a land code, what is in a state ordinances on buildings and all that. And that will actually help you. Maybe if you go back to your own state, then you can actually take out that and look at it, and you may find some similarities. They may be from the same mothers, the same root lah, basically lah, but difference and changes because of the different states' practices, different states' government and all that. Okay, and because here in Sarawak we deal a lot with native as well, which is a lot less than in West Malaysia, and compared to Sabah, we're quite similar. So yeah, so the land codes and also the land acts, the land ordinances and also the building codes and all that, they are a bit more localized in that sense. Okay, and I think that is what we're basically on when it comes to legislation. I'm not sure whether he'll be covering with you on like councils, and that sort of things, but I can check with him. And see where we can go from there. If you're interested in learning that sort of things, then we can always we can always add on in the future, like in that sense. But basically we have about 6 weeks of, actually 7 weeks, because the first week is just about the legal systems of Malaysia, which is why we are where we are, that kind of thing. And then the seven weeks is about all this is about legislative issues that is more relevant to engineers. So basically tomorrow you finish all the legislative issues already with the pre-recorded lectures. Basically it's all done already for legislative. Okay, so today what we're covering is we're covering contracts, starting to cover on contract, which I think will be very interesting for a lot of people. I hope, yeah. And that is a lot of people's weakness as well, because as engineers, we are not so much into languages. We're not so much into reading contracts and understanding contracts. Basically, we're just practicing from our seniors, from our peers, when we're managing contracts, and then from your own organizations, you're just basically learning from the top people or learning from your peers and friends, and all that, and then practice as you go along the way. And then when problems happens, you dig into the contract, and then you take a look at the contract, you learn from there. And so that has been always the practice in that sense. I mean, like from what I know, is no engineers actually sit down and really read and actually form your own contract and write your own contracts and all that. Hardly, but getting a lot more. A lot of people are actually more interested, and a lot of people are actually understanding the importance and the seriousness of understanding a contract. And a lot of engineers, especially the younger ones, they have really sort of like move into this area as well. QSs, of course, they are very into this, very much into this. So when it comes to assignments and all that, I think they are a bit more happy, to do this sort of assignments. Yeah. And more than engineers. Okay. So, I mean, there are few group of people. I mean, I know people who just doesn't like contract at all, and that and they find it a complete waste of time. And then and there are people who just are so interested in it, and that is that's the way it is. I mean, it's all a matter of preference. It's just like some people who love to do design, so much design, and some people who just are so much into supervision, and then you like to go to site, you like to see things being built, you're more interested in that than design or contract. That's fine. I mean, that is very much of a preferences kind of thing. But essentially, these are all knowledge that you have to know, even though you're working inside, or whether you're design engineers, or whether you are from the government agency. I think understanding the contract is pretty much a part of your work, whether you like it or not, whether you do it or not, whether you read it or not, it will eventually always be part of your work. So that is kind of unavoidable in that sense. Okay. Basically, we are covering mainly on working contract, which is the engagement between the builders, okay, or the contractors with the client in that sense. in this particular program, we are not actually covering on anything on consultancy agreement. Okay. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of you like he will probably be able to tell you, give you a lecture on consultancy agreement. I think that is because not everybody is practicing as consultants. So consultancy agreement with the client is another form of agreement, is another form of contract as well. So it's not part of our course. But if you're interested, we can actually, yes, Jillian, you have anything? You raise your hands. Jillian Kawan, because you raise your hand, so you have something to say? No? Accidental? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so if you, I mean, like, that is something to look at as well. I mean, it's interesting as well. I mean, I have some documents for it. If you're interested, we can always post it up in eLib, and then you can take a look at it as well. Okay, or I can prepare some pre-recorded for you, for those of you who are interested. Anyway, so that is really not part of our program in that sense, but mainly our program is on legislative issues, which is covering on the legal systems all the way to some of the major acts and ordinances that is relevant and needed for engineering industry. Okay, and then we are covering about 4 to 5 weeks, 4 weeks plus 5 weeks, more or less. Okay, on 4.5 weeks, I would say, on contract. Any points in a contract that I can think of, I will try to cover as much as possible for you. Okay, so there are some things, some terms, some terminologies that you see, and some practices that we have, and how we go about resolving issues with contract, how you administer a contract. I think these are all very important points that you have to learn now. And then we will also move into dispute resolution. I'm not covering procurement because procurement is actually covered under project management. So the floor is supposed to be procurement, like understanding procurement and then formation of an engineering contract, standard form of contracts, and then these are all more or less that we spoke about that in procurement. So once you form the contract, there is contract acts to govern of how you should form a contract. But in Malaysia, as rest of the world, it's not going to be so easy for every engineering project. Every project that we have, we create a new contract, we write our new terms and conditions. So we normally would use what we call standard form of contract, which is which covers all the general conditions that should be in an engineering contract. Okay, so about 4.5 weeks, we're trying to cover all these sort of things. Then from procurement, once the contract is being awarded, then the work on site will start to go, or the work, or the supply, or the manufacturing, or the production will go. Then it's about contract administration. We're administering the contract, which is all the roles of the engineers here. Is that day in, day out, you are dealing with it, even though you may be dealing with a very, very practical issues, but behind those practical issues, there will be some fine points of the contract that is involved. For example, if you're dealing with delays, if you're dealing with work done on site, you're dealing with progresses. These are all related. This is actually related to costs as well, which is related to payment, progressive payments, and then delays or extension of time, or then if your work progresses, the work quality. We are also in the front page here. I mean, on the first surface is non-compliance report, it's defects, in all that. But behind it, when you administer, the way that you behave, what you do basically is actually contractually bound. You see, so that one is actually related. So I think contract, honestly speaking, contract and normal progress and work on site is actually together in that sense. It's actually going on together. One is about the practice, one is about the work done, one is about the actual obligations, and responsibilities and rights of the different parties to actually I won't say behave but to act in a certain way in order to fulfill the practicality of work in that sense, so it's like a two-way thing, it's going on at the same time, it's like a doubling road that cars are moving at the same time on the two sides of the road. Yeah. So so it's important, it's important. And understanding legislative issues is about how we can see the root of forming those contracts, you see. And then, of course, contract acts is the major thing. But with the other acts that is also coming in very important, you will start to see that there'll be more and more clauses in the contract, and there has to be add in, there has to be in there, eventually, now not there, but then eventually it has to be there because, we need to cover on environment, you need to cover on sustainabilities, you need to cover on authorities' requirements, regulations, and all that. So I think that is so much part of where the legislation is like the foundation, and then the contract is actually built on the legislation, if you can see the picture of what I mean. Yeah. Then, of course, we cover one of the very important part of the ending of all this is actually dispute resolution. I think conflict management, we're supposed to have a class on conflict management, but I was told that in organization behavior, you do actually have a conflict management class. So I'm not quite sure about that. Is this so? We may modify on that. We may just give you some pre-recorded lectures. If it's like a double, then let me know. Okay, if it's not, then it's good. Then we also have a specific class on so the last two class we'll be focusing mainly on conflict and also dispute resolution, dispute management. And one of the very important things that we want to cover with you is SIPA, the acts, SIPA acts, which is not in the legislative part, but I put it more under the contract part because I think SIPA is more dealing with payment, okay, adjudication processes and all that. So it's mainly more under the adjudication, which is a little bit more relevant to say the contract part of dispute resolution mechanism. Okay, so most of the contract will tell you that if you have a dispute, in the end, they won't ask you to go for litigation, which is a court case. But court case, of course, is getting more and more popular. Okay, and then of course we have arbitration. It's not a very effective way. Both these are more formal way of resolving dispute, but adjudication is getting more and more popular. And then in Malaysia we have the SIPA. Okay, it's a bit similar. It's rather similar with the UK adjudication, housing and adjudication acts. I mean, it's something like that. Okay, so these are part and parcel of dispute resolution, which will end the whole program. I mean, whole course. And of course, the last class we will spend, besides closing up on all the topics that we want to cover, finishing up on all the topics, we will also cover on the exam questions and all that, which will happen on the 27th. So 27th of April will be the last class. What we will do is, because what we had is on the 29th, we're supposed to have two classes, remember? But I've spoken to Dr. Lin. We also agree that I think because of very, very close to Raya, we decided to push one of the class backwards and to later stage. But the flow will be going on, it'll be flowing just like that, okay? So on the 29th, which is on 2 weeks from now, we have another class. That one, I will decide whether it's going to be by pre-recorded, because like I say, there will be people who are traveling because it's a Saturday. A lot of you will be traveling back to your hometown and, preparing for the festive seasons and all that. And some of you who are not celebrating may decided to go for holiday because it's actually school children's holiday as well. So we will see how we go. I will ask for your opinion maybe on next few weeks, if you want to have pre-recorded, or would you like to have a class? But if you want to have pre-recorded, we will do pre-recorded So that is fine. So if you want to make travel plan for 29, you can go ahead and make travel plan on 29. So on 29 and 30th, you're basically quite free already. Okay. I think by Dr. Joe, what she's saying is she will also do pre-recorded on the 29th. So 30th, there's no classes. So we will floor the classes on the 27th of April. Is going to be our last class, which is on a Sunday morning, 8 to 11. So this is how we'll be mapping out the rest of the classes. The timetable sometimes is a little bit boggling because we do have a lot of double classes. But we can adjust as we go along now. Because you're not a big group anyways. 16, 18 is not really a big group. Yeah. So that can be negotiated in that sense. Okay. Any issues about the program itself? I keep on using the word program. Okay. Is the course itself or the assignment? I will give you the assignment. Later on, I will talk to you about the assignment a little bit. Yeah, I'll talk to you about the assignment a little bit, and then but I need you to focus on finishing your project first, and then project extension of time is being given to you until 21st of March. So take a look. If you have finished already, it's okay. Take a look, because the assignment brief, the project brief was given out last week, so you may miss something. So take a look at it, because the project brief was actually moderated in the universities. So Dr. Ambrose set the assignment and the project. Dr. Ambrose is our part-time, he's our invited lecturer. So we still need to control it from UNIMA's point of view. So whatever things that he has given you earlier on, maybe he's giving you a project brief. So we also need to moderate that to see the level is enough or not for a master's assignments and all that. So that one was the final one was posted last week, last Monday, I think, or last Tuesday. So that's why I gave you a little bit of extension to next week for you to hand in your project. So I need you all to take a look at the project brief. Don't assume it's the same thing as what Dr. Ambrose has given you. It's similar. It's the same. It's almost the same thing. 80% is the same. But, we cannot just post. We cannot take Dr. Ambrose's assignment and just give it to you like that. It's not the right thing to do. From the university point of view, me as a coordinator, I need to moderate that assignment. Even the exam questions, everything later on, you have to come back to me, okay, not him. Whatever tips that he's given you, take it, of course, but bear in mind that the ultimate control is from the university side with anything from the invited lecturers. That's why you see me posting the lecture notes. If the lecture note is not enough, I have to talk to him. The assignment, the brief, the project brief, assignment brief from me, project brief from him, all the exam questions, everything is actually going to be from my side, given to you in ELIP. Okay, that is just the way it is in the practice. Okay, we have to practice that way. I'm not sure how other lecturers practice whenever they have invited lecturers, but that is what it's supposed to be like. So I'm following the actual SOP in dealing with invited when the subject has an invited lecturer. Okay. That's why you see attendance list also, I have to be the one taking, not him. Okay. So tomorrow morning, as usual, 8-ish, when you guys arrive, I will go on the link with Flo again to take the attendance with you all. And in the afternoon, I will take another time of attendance with you. That is very strict. This is a very strict kind of process. You don't know how many audits that we have to do from the universities, to make sure that all the programs are safely being audited by some of the education agency in Malaysia, such as MQA and all that. Oh my gosh, they can be so problematic. So that is why we have been warned by Dr. Lin many times that, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, I say, yes. Okay. So that's why we try to practice as closely to what the agency wants as well. So hopefully you understand, not because of we try to be we cannot let, invited lecturers just do whatever they want. So that's why for your RP as well, we will need you to pick lecturers from our own universities and not from invited lecturers, because even if it's from invited lecturers, it's very difficult for us to control the quality that comes out from the thesis and all that. Okay, anyway, yeah, let's proceed. Any questions so far? There's some housekeeping because I have not actually seen you properly, met you properly for this program up until now. No? Tired? You all are tired already, I believe. I mean, who can study for like from 8 to 6 p.m.? Oh my goodness.
A bit tired already. I'm dreaming already.
Dreaming already. Yes, I can imagine. That's why even for us to talk to you for like this much hours also is like a nightmare. But I will try to finish as early as I can, just to get you guys going. If I can't finish, it's okay. We will finish around 5-ish maybe. And then after that, if any topics that is not covered, any parts that's not covered, we will proceed to the next class to cover. Don't worry, okay? You'll be given you'll be given everything. Not because even the hours is a bit less. Normally, I will also supplement with pre-recorded as well. So do not worry. We have to cover everything, but I'm just needing to know that what are the absorption level from your side. I mean, even if I try to cover everything today, I believe it's going to be very, very exhausting. A lot of information, especially when it comes to contract and legislation. It's a lot of points, a lot of words, a lot of things that you need to remember. So it can be very, very tiring in that sense. Yeah, I mean, like your brain is just like clicking and ticking and working all the while. But with my classes, normally I will record it. I think the other day with Dr. Ambrose's class, first class also, I've recorded it. I think I haven't processed it yet, but because it's quite a long one, have I processed? I also don't remember. Let me have a look at eLib. If I haven't processed it, I'll also process it and put it up on the eLib as well. So for my classes, normally I will process all this recording unless I forget to record, but I think I did record today. Yeah, it is recording. So, I will put it up, the recording as well. So those of you who are blurred out already or dreaming already, you can take a look at the the recording and the pre-recorded lectures as well. Okay? For you all to understand a bit better. For those of you who are just very, very new to this program, we have a few modes of teaching here. One is physical. When we use the word physical, it means that bodily, you have to be in that particular location. In Unimas, we're going to have meet up with you and the lecturer. Both of us have to be physical. Okay, so that is the meaning of physical. For those of then we have what we have now today. This is what we call online, but face-to-face. Yeah. So even though you are not opening your camera, it's okay. We are actually, this is like a live, at the moment. I'm not pressing some kind of recording and then you're listening to my recording. No. It's really a person here talking to you. Your lecture is online with you. This is what we call online face-to-face. And like tomorrow, we're going to do a pre-recorded, and some lecturers will do pre-recorded as well. Pre-recorded means that, we pre-record a lecture. And the good thing about pre-recorded lecture is you can stop anytime you want and then go and do other things and then come back to it. But the bad thing is sometimes some students, because it's a pre-recorded lecture, they lost that kind of discipline to go and open that pre-recorded lecture and listen. And they will just end up, I don't care, I'll just read the notes, and sit for exams. And they miss out a lot of things in the pre-recorded lecture. So I believe you are not like that. You will listen to the pre-recorded. And for my pre-recorded, as those of you who already know me for 1 or 2 semesters, my pre-recorded will be by the segments of 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So pre-recorded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that. And then you can just listen to 10 minutes first, and then go out, maybe, do your things and come back. Or in the morning, you go to work, you listen to 10 minutes, and then when you go home, you listen to 10 minutes. So that sort of mode. So that is how I'm more comfortable with that, because as usual, sometimes from my point of view, if I do 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes with you, is better because there are a lot of times that I may talk for like 2 hours and then I did not do any recording, or I can talk for 1 whole hour and I did not show you the slide, that sort of things. And there'll be a lot of mistake that is made if I make a very, very long lecture and then I end up talking for many, many hours to myself and it's not being recorded. Okay, so 10 minutes is making sure that I've got everything. Okay, and for students, of course, it's better in that sense because there's more freedom, and it's easier for you to detect which part that you don't understand. Like you don't have to open up the whole lecture all over again in order to get that one part that you don't understand. So by 10-minute segments, you actually can go to that 10-minute segments and try to understand that 10-minute segments rather than going back to the whole 2 hours or 3 hours pre-recorded to find that segments that you don't understand. Okay, so yeah, this is only for people who just joined us this semester. So I'm not sure who you are, but there are some names that I don't really know. I think Zahara is probably one of them. The rest, I think I've seen you before last sem, okay, and the sem before, okay. And anyway, let's move on to the class itself. So our focus here is on contract, okay, mainly on contract. Window. Okay, and my notes. You can see my notes, Can you all see my notes? Oh no, actually you can't. Have I share? No, not yet. Share. Okay. Oh, okay. This
Got something
one.
you haven't shared anything.
Yep. You can see my share. Okay, let me off this. Oh, it's not this. This one. Okay. All right. Can you see my notes? Time delays in contract.
I cannot see your time.
Oh, you cannot see my notes,
Yeah, I see the
another
screen.
things. There's not this one is like attendant, like so many people named there.
Oh,
You see your
okay.
screen only.
Okay, let me check. What is the stop sharing? Okay. Share. Window. Entire screen. Let's try entire screen. Okay. Okay. What about this one? Can you see?
Yes, doctor.
Time delays in contract,
Yes.
If I move, can you see my movement?
Yes.
Okay, I can see the movement now. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think in a contract, okay, in any form of contract, there will be, one party. There has to be two parties in it, So you have got one guy, okay, who is going to be the client, who is going to be the person awarding the contract, and the person who is going to do the job. Okay, so for a typical engineering contract, the signing is going to be between the client and also the contractor, or the builder, or the service provider, or the supplier, whichever industry that you're working in. Okay, for the client side, normally we have private and also government client or government linked client. So that would be the general practice in the industry, in the engineering industry. So you will be dealing with the paymasters or somebody who is going to be, awarding you with the job or wanting you to do the job for them. Okay, so client, the word client are usually used interchangeably. Okay, so there are the organization who will own the project. Okay, they will initiate the project. Okay, And normally they'll have some needs, for the items or for the projects or for the production or for for whatever service that is needed. Okay, so they are the one that I don't want to use the word fund, because I mean, essentially, we can say that the client will fund the contract because the payment will come from them. But of course, behind the funding, the actual funding can also be from some other places as well. Okay, so it's not necessarily strictly like funded by the client. Okay, but or the client, somebody from the client will have to fund the projects normally. So essentially, these are the people who are involved. Okay, and in Malaysian industry, I think we all know private sectors. Okay, so you'll be dealing with maybe developers, you'll be dealing with private owners who have specific needs for your service. Okay, whether it's a consultancy service or a contracting service or a building service or or manufacturing service. Okay, so these are the typical client that you have. Okay, and client, the word client will be used interchangeably with the word employer. Okay, and what else? And there may be some agency that they will write their own contract and they will use other terms that also specify, or they may use their own company's name as the client kind of thing, so or the employer. So again, you need to define, you need to understand who you are signing the contract with. So there will be somebody from the client side who will be signing the contract with you. So somebody from the employer side will be signing the contract with you. And different contracts, sometimes they will use, like I said, different way of calling the client, the name client. Okay, but generally they are considered as client now. Then, of course, we have the contractor. The contractor will be the people or the service provider, or, I use the word contractor. It's very engineering because, I mean, it's very civil engineering. It's very me because I'm a civil engineer. And but like I said, if you're not from civil or construction, then the word contractor may be a little bit far from you. So you just have to replace it with the service provider or the manufacturer, or the actual manufacturers, or the factories itself, or the supplier itself. So that can be in that replacement position. So builders, contractors, or service provider, I would say. Maybe I should use the word service provider. It doesn't matter what sort of service you're providing. You're providing a contractor's service or a builder service, or any service that you're providing. You need to be on that end at the part that you are, forming the contract with the contractor. Okay, so well, if we talk about the formation of contract, if you look at contract acts, right, there will always be some form of there will be always that two parties involved. Okay, and then there's a lot of conditions about whether these two parties can actually contract with one another. And in order to form the contract itself, you will usually have to start with an intent or a proposal. There will be an offer, and also there'll be a formal acceptance, and then after that, and a lot of little things in between there to make you be able to form the contract. So the offer role usually will be in the form of the offer role usually will be the builder who actually offer the price. So the intent normally will be the person who are specifying the intent, which is usually the client. So normally there will be contract specification, a brief, drawings, and all of that is provided by the client side. And then so that call for tender, okay, is actually an invitation for you to propose. Okay, so the intent, the invitation to propose or to offer, it will usually come from the client. So in most engineering contract, it will start off with not just offer, it has to start off with an invitation to offer. Okay, so that invitation, like I said, it can be formed in a form of calling up the contractor, asking them to quote, or asking, opening up a tender, calling for tender, bids. These are all typical way of inviting tenders, inviting an offer. Okay, so you put up online in your website, these are the requirements, these are the documents, come and pick it up. These are all invitation. Okay, yes, you have an invitation, but of course that invitation does not make you must accept whatever offer that comes in. Because there is some form of legality here. So it does not mean that because you put out an invitation, you must accept whoever that is offering. You can always say no, none of this match our requirement, and therefore we can, close our door and let's do it again. This is legally correct. It is okay. So no contractors, no builders or supplier can say that, oh, because I offer you and you never award a contract and therefore you're wrong, and I will sue you. You're not supposed, they can't do that. An invitation is just an invitation, to offer. Then the offer will come from a contractor. So the contractor will be the person who is going to be doing all the job, doing all the work, doing all the service providing, bringing in all the materials, bringing in all the money, capital, and then they have to get things going, get things done, etc., etc. So, well, basically they are the people who is, if you put it in a very layman term, it will be the person who is going to supply you with the service, and to do the work, basically. Okay, to make the things into a reality. That would be what the builder's role would be, or the service provider role would be, to provide you with the service, to do the dirty work. Okay, so so the contractor will offer, okay, or the service provider will offer, and that will usually be in the form of tender, bids, quotations, or whatever other words, or it can be verbal. I can verbally offer you something, and a lot of nowadays, sometimes when we offer something, we may actually just go to a phone, and they say, okay, I think we can do this. We want to do this for, like, say 100K of some small renovator. They may do things like that, and they say, okay, just give you over WhatsApp. Well, is that legal? Verbal contract is also a contract. You will realize that verbal contract is also a contract. It's just that verbal contract should always be followed up with a formal intention to create a legal relation. Okay, but if there is an intention to create a legal relation, that is part of the formation of a contract. If there is this intention there, then things are pretty much set. So whatever terms that you agree upon, we will usually say that, I offer you this price. Later on, I will do you a proper quotations, and you need to sign on that quotations, or you need to sign on that bids, or, there must be some form of acceptance. So again, you see, the formation of the contract is the offer and then the acceptance. And of course, the firm offer, the firm acceptance, and the communication of this offer and acceptance is very important in order to create that formation. And that formation will mean whether you have a case or not, whether you have a contract or not even, you see. So very, very, very crucial here if you look at it. We do not want to work in a contract and then later on you say that there's not even a contract here. And that could create a lot of subsequent issues even. So whether you're from the client agency or whether you're from the contractors agencies, or whether you're from the consultant agencies, be very careful in that idea of formation. I mean, there are many clients, sometimes they get people to work without a formal contract, and that is actually, they think that they can get away with it. Actually, they can't, because if everything is there and there's the intention to create a legal relation, then normally there will be some form of initial acceptance, even though it may be verbal or even is by social media or WhatsApp or whatever. It cannot not be counted as, I mean, it may be a bit difficult for the process to prove that there is a contract, but it is possible. It is actually very possible that there is a contract, okay? So you need to understand the fulfillment and the requirement of how to form a contract. So contractor, you are the other person, party A, party B, so one is the offeror, one is the offeree, offeree, offeror, the person, in legal terms, there are the plaintiff and the defendants, so somebody who is actually initiating something, somebody who is responding to something. So that role can actually switch. So in the contract, you actually will have the client agency on one end, party A, and contracting a contractor or service provider agency in one end, which is party B. Okay, so there has to be this two party here, and of course, there must be like no fraud involved, no misrepresentation involved, there must be consideration involved. So the consideration involved is basically the contract sum. Okay, so that is the exchange of something of value passing in between the two parties. That is what we call consideration. And consideration is part of a very important point of forming a contract. If there's nothing of value passing in a contract, or if it's a very social kind of thing, then you may have other issues coming up later on. Okay, so exchange of service is also a contract as well. It's also a consideration. You cannot say that, because I don't pay you in hard cash, but then later on I pay you in terms of service. Is also a contract. Like let's say, I offer to clean your house for you, for the next 12 months, and then in exchange for the service that I'm providing for you. That is also a contract, because there's something of consideration here. Even $1 is a consideration. So every contract must have consideration. What the problem is, if you don't have a consideration, meaning you have nothing of value passing between the two persons here, then it becomes a very social contract. And it's a very social contract. Social contract is proven in another way of proving, not in this normal contract way of proving. Okay. So yes, so you have this two party here. Of course, most engineering contract, we have another party involved here, which is the designer. Okay, the design, the consultant. Okay, they are not literally in the process. It's a very special kind of contract, because this designer's name will appear in the contract many, many times, So even though they're not the person signing the contract with the client's agency, okay, a client agency with they are not, the contract itself don't have a consultant that sign on it. That's what I mean. They don't belong to, they are a very specific agency by itself. There is a specific party by itself, but they are not sort of literally, they are not the two person here. Okay, what their role generally is, they may be appointed as the client's representative in certain circumstances, as a SO or the architects or the engineers. In some contract they call them engineers, architects. In PAM they call it architects. And then in government agency contract, SO superintending officers is not the client's agency. It's not the consultant, okay, but the consultants, they are the SO representative. Okay, so meaning that if let's say you work for JKR, SO will be superintending officers, will be, let's say, the JKR engineers. The people from the client's agency, like their directors or the person signing the contract. They are the SO. They usually will be appointed as the SO, and then the appointed consultant will be the SO representative. So that would usually be the confusion when it comes to that. Consultants are not exactly the SO, but they are the SO representative, and basically they are doing all the SO job, I would say, but they're technically they're not called the SO, Okay, so with private agency, you may have SO as the engineers themselves, as well the design and the design engineers. Again, we have to get this correct in every contract. So they may vary from different contract. From, let's say, private government link with government link agencies, or with the government agencies, semi-government agencies, or the private agencies. So that, there is a little bit of difference. So just make sure that you get all the parties. That's why in the contract, the first few pages, they need to list down properly who are the parties, what are the names. They also define properly what do you mean by the parties in the contract, so that we don't get ourselves confused and then start to make noises to the wrong people in that sense. Okay, and so we have these three parties here that usually will pop up in any engineering contract. Okay, so the designer's job usually will be the one designing. They are the one that solves the technical problem. Okay, and they may or may not be appointed as the person who is going to look after the job in terms of the supervision. Again, that one will fall back to a consultancy agreement with the client. Okay, the client in terms of the supervision may actually in a engineering contract with the service provider may be putting that responsibilities back to their own engineers or their own selected representative rather than the designer. So to use the word consultant or designer as that third party can be a little bit fishy sometimes. It can be a little bit difficult to define in that way. So we have to be careful. I know it's a bit difficult to actually spell out everything to you, but normally what we want to do is to give you as much possibilities as possible. And in contract, we try to use the term very carefully, not just consultant, a contractor, client, like that, we can't use it so widely in that sense, because when there is a problem later on, there's a specific line of responsibilities and authority involved here, and then there may be specific I would say people taking the responsibilities involved that needs to take up the responsibility. So we need to get that bit out correct. You see, that parties in the contract correct. So usually we will have in any contracts be very specific about what do you mean by client, what do you mean by SO, what do you mean by engineers, what do you mean by contractors representative, what do you mean by SO representative, and so, or assistant or cut of works, that kind of wordings, that we sometimes on site we take it for granted, but actually in contract they can vary from depending on the definition involved today. Okay, so why do we need to have a contract? So obviously, in this very, very civilized world in today's society, I think we need to be making sure that we're not doing anything illegal. Okay, so every engineering contract is supposed to be legally binding. It means that it is actually formed properly according to the Contract Acts. Okay, and it is actually recognized, okay, in the eyes of the law of the country, say Malaysia. So the law of Malaysia must recognize that contract. And then why does the law must recognize the contract? Because law is supposed to be here to govern transactions. So when we have transaction, when we have people here doing business with one another, we want to safeguard the interests of all the parties here involved. We want to make sure that nobody is doing anything illegal. We want to make sure that nobody is being wrong, or being put at a disadvantage by another party here. So there must be fairness in transaction. There is a natural principles of justice here that we want to make sure that everybody is peacefully transacting in Malaysia, doing businesses or carrying out their day-to-day life in this country. This is what we call law and order. So contract is like an order, order that you put on people who are actually transacting with one another. So it will list down the transaction, what is the transaction all about, what is the consideration in that transaction. It will also list down whether the party can transact with one another. It will list down the activities that needs to be transacted. And then it will list down the responsibilities of the parties that is transacting with one another. And then it will also list down the obligation, responsibilities, and also most importantly, the right of the party that is actually involved in this transaction. So equally understanding your right, you have to understand your responsibilities. And that is looking at the principles of a fair contract. Okay, so it's not clever. Okay, if you say that, because I'm the client, I form the contract, and therefore I'll write everything according to my rights and according to my advantage. so that I can rip off the other party. That is already, in a sense, not legal already, you see. So any fair transaction, any principles of fair justice, and anything on principles of justice, you must make sure that the contract has that elements of rights, whose right is this and whose responsibilities is this, and if that person did not do that responsibilities or do not bring forward what they promise, what is the penalty here, what is the thing that the other party can do in order to get back their justice, or to bring back fairness to the contract. So you see, contracting is governing the behavior. If I were to put it in a very crude terms, it's to govern the behavior of the people who are going to be transacting with one another, so that you don't mess up law and order of the country. If you're doing hanky-panky things, if you are messing up with the law here, you are actually going to affect the order of the country. Order means the flow, peacefulness, the day-to-day people behaving, living, it will be a case, a case that actually affected somebody's life, and somebody's way of doing business. And somebody may end up being bankrupt, somebody may end up losing something, they may end up losing life, they may end up losing money, they may end up losing some things of value here. This is order. When a country is not in order, then you're going to have a lot of issues here, okay? Whether it's society order, whether it's business order. So law and order is something very crucial, and engineering being one of the topmost active industry, I would say, so much transaction when it comes to engineering, whether it's mechanical, manufacturing, it literally holds up the economy of a country, okay? And you cannot tell me that a contract is not important, you see. When you have so many people making a living in this country, trying to transact with one another and doing business with one another to make a living, and you don't need any order in all this matter, you need, definitely. So contract is definitely one thing that is a must in a country, okay? And then it will basically look into the two parties transacting with one another, their behavior, the governing of the behavior, to make sure that it's legally binding, because law has that responsibility to make sure that transaction is done properly, so that the citizens of this country is living in order, okay? We do not want any disorder, issues, problems that will pop up from anything that can affect that order, okay? So I think that is one way of my way of looking at that. And of course, on the bigger level, when your country is, you have a way of contracting, you have a way of transacting, you have order, that will actually make you interact better with your international counterpart. For example, with Singapore, with Southeast Asia, with the rest of the world. So you will know that nobody would want to go and be a contractor or a designer or whatever in a country that is having a war, or there's nobody who's willing to go to, Middle East at the moment, I would say, to do business. I mean, of course, there will be some people who want to do that, but, normally we won't want to do that because there's no order there. So it's about the image of a country. It's about where it's standing in terms of international, so transparency, legality, all these are part and parcel of world order, with region order, with countries order. It's all about order, okay? So yeah, so we want to keep everything in order. So we need that. Okay, so the legal systems of Malaysia says that if any transaction transacted legally, form a contract. And there are many elements within a contract. Understanding the contracting parties, of course, is one element, okay, in the contract. Listing out the activities, the scope of work, and ODAT is also part of the contract. So you will see that in a contract, they will also have a scope of work, whereby you will say, refer to the drawings, refer to the specifications, refer to the other documents that will actually be part and parcel of your contract. Okay, so it's not only that few terms and agreement that you sign. Okay, so a contract is also an agreement. Okay, an agreement, what does it mean by an agreement? An agreement is a meeting of minds. Okay, you need to meet the mind, the two parties need to understand on the same thing. There should not be any misrepresentation, there should not be any mistake, and there should not be any fraud involved here, because we are all expecting and looking and discussing on the same thing. Okay, and that is what we call agreement. It's a meeting of mind. An agreement is we are agreeing on each other's expectation, each other's thinking in that sense, and then we put it on paper. So contract, agreement, they are used interchangeably, although sometimes people will use agreement on things that is a little bit more smaller. I mean, like the scope that is a little bit more smaller, like maybe buying a house, or borrowing from a bank. These are something that is less complicated. But when it comes to engineering, like a project, because of the complication of the work, the documents and everything involved, we will usually call it a contract. So, I mean, there is no formal definition here, but people always use agreement on smaller things and contract on bigger things. So, I mean, you don't really have to accept that, but they are usually used interchangeably. Okay, and so from there, there are many elements. So one of the elements definitely has to be the scope of work. If you don't define the scope of work properly, you're not meeting the minds. Okay, I mean, it's like if I am expecting a 10 stories high rise or 15-story high rise, and you are imagining a 2 stories detached house, I mean, come on, this is going to be a complete different thing that we're looking at. So we need to agree on the value, the consideration, and we need to agree on the scope of work. And the scope and the scope of work, so, and for people who sit with me on the scope management before, I define this very carefully. Scope is scope, scope of work is scope of works. Okay, so scope of work are activities, product is the scope. So it has to be agreed upon. So, and that usually will link your contract with many different documents, because you cannot really put everything in one page or in a few pages. So a contract document itself for any engineering will usually be the general conditions of contract and any special conditions involved in the contract. You can draft this contract on your own, of course, being, assisted by the legal team of your company, or you can specifically engage lawyers to do that. Then you will have the subsequent, you need to have the tender documents as well, which is meaning basically tender documents involved usually only means one thing: offer and acceptance. Okay, so they want to see what is being offered here properly, and that will be part and parcel of the contract documents. Your summary of tenders, where you sign, where you put the value and everything. The offer is very important. That would be the formation of the contract. To form that is a contract. Then, of course, the letter of award, which usually means acceptance or some form of letter telling you that you're being accepted for the job. And then we form the contract based on that. And of course, you have drawings. Usually, engineering does not stop with just words. Okay, so you have drawings in it, and with that drawings, it could be pages and pages of drawings. Part and parcel of it could be tender drawings as well. Tender drawings and construction drawings, they're a little bit different from one another, but they are all drawings. So depending on what you put inside there. Then also we will also have specifications, okay, and any quality plan, risk management plan, whatever is stated Okay, so that in the contract, it will not sort of like tell you a stories about pages and pages about what is the scope of work. Okay, it will tell you that refer to this document, that document, and then they will also include by this document, by this document, by these documents, you know. And then some specification may not even be the specification. They may just ask you to refer to JKR standard car, or, you know, road specifications car, or water board standards car, or whatever. Okay, so it is listed there. So that is another element within the contract itself. Okay, then we will follow in and talk about what are the other elements. If we the main part, the biggest thing, I mean, or the most obvious and the thing that will usually come up very fast will be the time. Okay, because time and the formation of the contract is actually related. Okay, so in the contract award process, okay, we will usually have your tender document that you submit as an offer by the service provider. Then you have your client side that will actually send in their letter of award or some form of agreement to your offer. And again, read that thing carefully. It has to be absolute. It has to be, we award you, but not subjected to something. You know, if we say subject to renegotiation, get subjected to you including this and that, that is not an acceptance. You have to be careful. That is usually a counter offer. So don't take it as an acceptance and think that you have the contract already. You don't, okay? So the scope of work, the documents involved, and once you've got that, there will always be a date that you will actually set to sign a formal contract. This is another very important part. It's called intention to create a legal relation. So normally in the acceptance, we will always tell the service provider when you can come and sign the contract, or do you already have some form of document for them to read through. Okay, but you will set a date for contract signing. And the question is, once you only have a contract when the time starts ticking. Okay, so time is a very crucial element here in any contract. So if you have you must know when is your start date. Okay, when the project will start. You see, I put here 2.1 project start. I don't put the word start date. Okay, project start date and contract start date can be two different things. Okay, that's how careful we should be with the wording here. Project start does not mean contract start. When you start the project in terms of planning, in terms of when people look for project in terms of legal, if you go to court now, you know, you cannot say that, oh, project start date. It's not that, you know. So when we do legal documents, like when we do expert witness documents for people, project start date will usually means when the planning starts, when the submissions, you know, when the studies is done, you know, when the conceptual, there is a specific date that we will tell your team, you know, we are starting the project now. Okay, so today, we start the project last year, 15th of March, into first conceptual planning, you know, studies, you know, and all that. That is what we call project starts. And project starts can be to the project completion, meaning handing over, starting to use by after the defect liability period. This is what we call the whole project, you know, the whole project duration. Okay, and in between, there is different people, different responsibilities involved and all that. And the main part of the contract itself will be the service provider with the client. That bit is going to be a start date that we define by a contract start. Okay, contract start itself usually mark the activity starting. activities, what we mean by activities is not the planning activities or the environmental studies or whatever the earlier part, the planning part. It is essentially the start date of the construction work, okay, or the contract work, the activities or the scope of work, the delivery of the scope of work. So this is the contract that is one of the most crucial part of any project, because that will determine when the project will be delivered fully, okay? And in this contract itself, we loosely always use the word project and that is where the confusion starts in. So the project, if we use the word project as in construction, okay, the project activity, we use the word project, okay? This particular duration itself, okay, will be marked by the contract start date. And the contract start date, there is another element here that we have to be very careful about contract start date, is whether when you are signing the contract, that would mean the ticking of the clock itself. Okay? If the contract start date also mark the site possession date, means that the site is being handed over. Okay? The site is being handed over to the service provider or the builder or the contractor, then that is the project start date. Okay? So, in terms of project, it is defined by conceptual all the way down to handing over to the users and all that. Okay, so that is the definition of a project. Okay, so now for the purpose of contract, instead of using the word contract, okay, let's use the word project. But when I start to talk about project now, from now onwards, from this part onwards, start date 2.1.1 onwards, let's mark it as project activities, meaning that, you know, you're delivering the project now. Okay, the delivery phase of the project. Okay, so this project start date, or we call project duration or contract duration, okay, or contract start date, there is two things that we need to look at here. Number one, this date here, does it also mark the notice to proceed? And this notice to proceed is essentially what we call, formally, terms that we usually would use is to be, you know, you using for most contract is the site possession date. Okay, or in terms of manufacturing, it could be, I mean, it may be notice to proceed, you know, but anything to do with is interchangeable, So it means that there is a slight difference. You know, there's a slight difference. Site possession usually means that there's an area that you are allowed to go in and do your work. So it's very much applicable to civil engineering. But notice to proceed is like, it can be manufacturing, it can be engineering, means that now you are going to do the work. You know, I'm leaving it to you to do your work, to order your material, to actually send in, to start your factory lines, you know, or to, you know, decide to start to create your product. Notice to proceed has that element. So any project start date or contract, in terms of project / contract, okay, at the moment, okay, you will usually have to sign the contract. And many people will say that once I sign the contract, it means the clock will tick. Definitely, it will tick. Because normally and usually, it is associated when you sign the contract, you know, like many times in any formal ceremony, you will usually have some form of site handover, correct or not? Okay? So in terms of site possession, especially for civil engineers, we do a lot of site QS, site possession, QS and civil engineers, we do a lot of things like site possession. So usually there will be a piece of land that deals with that you need to actually own, like, I put it in quote, own. It will be handed over to you to do work. So there is an area, there is some form of space that you need to possess. Okay, and this site possession, normally in the contract signing date, the client side need to be specific about that site possession is given to you now. Okay, so contract sign, you have site possession is on the same day. So the project contract date will usually start upon signing and specifically on site possession. And there may be situation whereby the contract is signed, but the site possession is not given. So it does means that there is no notice to proceed, and it does means that the time haven't started. So if there is a situation like this, possession is not given. When the possession is not given, essentially the contract that hasn't started yet. So even whatever that the client can bullshit you about, it is not true. Okay, you can have you have the right to say that, if the site is not given to you for too long, your contract haven't started yet. So they cannot charge you possession, they cannot charge you liquidated damage and all those sort of things if the possession start date is not given. Okay, but like I say, usually is at the same time. So the contract signing, contract date will start upon notice to proceed, upon site possession. Understand or not? Huh? So that's why in most contract that we manage, it will be, I signed a contract with you now, the site is all yours, on that day itself, there will be some ceremony. Sometimes, government agencies like to do all this ceremonial thing, and they will pass over the site daily logbook or whatever as a mark, or, some form of letter or something that mark the site possession. Sometimes it's the key, sometimes it's the, they call it land moving, they do the bulldozing, that kind of thing, and mark the YB come and, got on the land, that kind of thing, These are all, all this is talking about site possession, and that site possession is that very specific word that we must use for civil people. So you need to possess that site. Okay, and there are situation like manufacturing also is a notice to proceed. So some other industry, they use the word notice to proceed. So basically it's about notice to proceed. Okay, and when you get site possession, that is the start date of the contract. Okay, and so I would say contract start date, project start date will be site possession, and usually it can be, normally like 90% of the time it will be together with the contract signing date, but there are situations that it's not given, and when it's not given, then the notice to proceed is not given. So you cannot go and or drive your excavator or go and do something and mark the go and get ready to do your work. Okay, because there is no notice to proceed. And there's a lot of issue here. Because if this notice of proceed is not given to you, and it does not mean that they have no legal responsibility. It does not mean that they can cancel the contract. No, there is no such thing. It means that even though the contract is signing already, and the notice to proceed is not given, and then you go and buy your material, or you start to do your work, it does not mean that it's wrong. It does not mean that it's wrong. But if there is issues later, if there's issues later, like some things got stolen on site, or there is some criminal thing going on, or there is later on EOT, many other issues later will fall back to this sort of specific definition. So it's better to get it right in the first place. You see, don't be too ambitious, in that sense. When the site possession or notice to proceed is not given, then you start to move into you don't want to be sued for trespassing, because basically even the contract is signed, but you're not given that right to go into the land yet. And there may be people, or there may be things in the land itself that is not resolved, and then by when you moving into the land, then you're going to get issues. Okay. And there's another word that is also very closely related to site possession, is the rights of way. Rights of ways, it may sound quite similar, but actually there's a difference between the two of them. Rights of ways is about you're not given the way to the site, or the site itself, because site itself will usually be one piece of land or some form of tapak, or along a route, somewhere along the route. Okay. And rights of way usually means the way to that site. Okay. Or the way to the route, or part of the route is being blocked in that sense. So it means that you cannot go and you don't have the full, like for example, if you do drainage or pipelines, rights of ways comes in a little bit more often. And if you do like a project, like let's say a water treatment plant, or a high level water tower, or transmission plant, or development, all these sort of things, so these sort of things involve a very fixed piece of land. Then rights of way usually means that something in between for you to move into the site is actually being blocked. And some people, they actually mark it as site possession issue. Actually, it's right of way issue. It's not that the site is not ready. It's the way to the site is not ready. Okay, and that will actually create site possession issue. So some client may tell you that, hey, I already give you site possession, like how come you didn't move in? But the problem is along the way to the site itself, there may be kampong people coming up to you and say that, you're chopping my tree, you're not supposed to be stepping on the road, you're not supposed to be stepping into our plant, our paddy fields, or our plantations, that the right of ways is not being resolved. Okay, so there's a bit of slight difference here, which sometimes contract is not very clear. A lot of engineering contracts are not very clear, because engineering contracts are usually dealt with by standard form of contract. And standard form of contract, is actually applicable as a very general terms and conditions. So we may not have anything so specific in most of the standard form of contract. Does not have something so specific, because when we have a one size fits all t-shirt, you want to make sure that a lot of people can wear it. It's not just you, one particular project can wear only, So so that's why we are a little bit more blur here when it comes to using standard form of contract, because some, like what I mentioned just now, may not be fully covered in the contract itself. Okay, because we normally use a standard form of contract, unless you are very specific, like maybe you are some organization like SEB, they have very specific way of contracting, because they use their own SEB standard form of contract, and because their nature of project are pretty much fixed, so they can be a bit more detailed in that sense. But if let's say most engineering contract, if you use back the general ones like PWD or JKR standard form of contract, or you use like PAM or CIDB contract and all that, or IEM contract, these are all very general terms and conditions of contract. So they may not be so specific about certain things that we're speaking about here. But like I said, contract as usual, no problem, then we have no problem. But when we start to have problem, then all this will be dug out, and then you need people to start to define every single thing, If you start to go for dispute or having issues, going to court and all that, all this will be defined out, carefully by expert, and then you will realize that a lot of things you did not actually do the thing properly, because you don't know the definition properly. Okay. Okay. So start date. Okay. Start date and contract date. Contract date is usually the start date, especially if the notice to proceed is being given on the same day. Okay. And notice to proceed can also mean site possession. Okay. And site possession means that you are given the rights to use that piece of land to carry out the work. And then, of course, with site possession also comes with a lot of responsibilities as well. Okay, it signifies the commencement of the work itself. It also means that you need to do the work according to the requirement, and you need to keep the site safe, you need to look after the workers in your site. The responsibilities of the site itself falls under the contractor now. If things are being stolen, or if there's any things that are being if there's any criminal, like for example fighting, for example things goes missing, machine got stolen, these are all pretty much under the responsibilities of the contractor already. Okay, and yeah, so usually contractor will put up some form of boundary on the site to mark the usually a signboard with the fencing and all that if you have a specific site. But like I said, many engineering jobs also involve a root kind of construction, meaning like drainage, waterworks, telecommunication lines, pipelines, all these things are actually along a certain route. So along a certain route is also considered as site possession, but the rights of way sometimes is more appropriate in terms of when we talk about route kind of constructions, because it can be one stretch in particular that the whole site, like for example pipeline, you got 15 kilometers, there's 1 kilometer, there's 5-6 kilometers somewhere there, that you have opposition from the you have opposition from the residents, or there may be issues from the owners of the land for you not to do the work. So that particular stretch is being kacau, you see, and legally, contractually, there is an issue here, because what happened is you cannot say that the site is not being possessed by you. You can, you see, you can do the change whatever to whatever can be done. The possession is there, you see, but it's just that particular section of rights of way is not there. So how do you claim possession, and how do you claim for delays when one part of the site is not being given, you see? So that could be an issue here contractually. So mostly, like I said, in civil engineering contract, we will take that as possession issues, okay, and apply for site possession issues. But contractor must also prove that if there's a delay, it's very much of this particular section that don't have the rights of way that is creating a problem. You see, most contracts that talk about possession issues, they don't talk about rights of ways issues. You see, so that could be dealt with. So it makes contract administrator very difficult to deal with this sort of issues. Like, now should I give or not? Should I, if I read the contract, it doesn't seem to be there, but then if I look at it very strictly, this is the issue. This is not falling under site possession issues, you see. It's actually falling under right of ways issue. But then we may need both parties to prove that this right of ways issue is going to create a full site possession issues. And then we may have other solution, like maybe sectional handover or sectional completion. And then, EOT may have to be given based on that as well. Okay. So anyway, there's two ways of looking at it. Like I said, if you have a proper site, then that is very clear. But there may be issues of going to the site when the site issue itself is not there, but then the right to the site is there. That is also a problem. But I think normally in most contracts, we will lump it under possession issues if there's no specific clause on rights of ways issues. Okay. And for the root kind of construction work, like I said, pipeline, drainage, telecommunication cables and all that, that kind of issues are not exactly possession issues, but right of ways issue, meaning there's a certain stretch that cannot be given, but other stretch are okay. You see, you can do work in other stretch. So if we look at it from site possession generally, then normally we need to find solution to resolve that rights of way issue. We still can look at it as a site possession issues, means that contractor can say that, I don't have the full route here, so therefore, even though it's only one stretch, it still can be counted as site possession issue, okay, if the contract does not cover right of ways issues. Okay? So again, a lot of arguments. If we go to court, then there will be a lot of definition that is going to come out here now. Okay, so if we deal with it in terms of contract administrator instead of going for dispute, then normally we would try to resolve in terms of this sort of issues with maybe like say partial handing over or either way it's like you totally don't give the notice to proceed at all, site possession, until you resolve that particular section, especially if the section is a very large section. So we may, to make it cleaner, to make it clean cut, we may just decide that, okay, site possession is not being given yet. We haven't resolved that rights of ways to the issue first. Or like I said, you can activate like sectional possessions and sectional handing over and sectional completion later on. And that again will create another level of contractual issues again, okay? Because each section, anything with sectional completion should be treated like a subcontract by itself. So calculation of the overall contract time, it is going to be a little bit more tricky now, okay? Because if I said, if the whole stretch you're given 24 months to do the work, but you're sectionally giving up certain section to do the work, how do you count the new contract time now? So again, there is some form of fishiness. I mean, trickiness here, not fishiness. Trickiness here in order to manage that. That's why some client may just decide, okay, fine, let's just clean cut a bit. We will resolve these issues and we'll get it going before site possession. Actually, site possession is not really a big issue here because basically, if you don't have possession, you don't have a start. If you don't have a start, there is no contract. Okay, no, sorry, I cannot use the word there's no contract. Basically, time is hanging. Okay, so if there is a prolonged delay, meaning this contract start date is not there. When the contract start date is not there, then everything else later on are just being moved backwards only, you know, once the contract starts. So that is way much cleaner to manage than having a little bit of, you know, hand you over some part and then cannot hand you over some part. Then it makes the contract administrator management very difficult, you see. It may be easy say, you know, oh, give sectional completion, but the people who are managing it, if you don't have a lot of experience in this, especially young engineers or people engineers who are not very fluent with contract, you will have a lot of problems coming out, and there's not much of SOP, you know, that is available for you to resolve that sort of problems. Okay, so if there is a prolonged delay, like I say, in site possession, we will usually cause what we call time at large, and time is at large is a legal terms. Okay, so we are referring to a situation that there's no specific or agreed upon deadline for the completion of work. Okay, so it means that everything is hanging. So if possession of site is not given, usually within a very reasonable period, time will be at large. Okay, when time is at large, contractor has no obligation to complete the work by a specific date that was originally stated. Okay, and of course, contractor also cannot claim for delays at the moment. Okay, and yeah, so time is at large. Like I said, there is a few. It does not make the contract irrelevant. The contract time is not say irrelevant. It's just that because of too long hanging, like maybe land issues, a lot of other problems like force majeure or acts of God, you know, like site cannot be given, pandemic, when time is at large, how do I put it? It's basically the completion date that you started off with cannot be applied anymore. Okay, it has to be renegotiated. Okay, and there is no such thing as if site is not possessed in 3 months or 2 months or 1 month, then time is at large. It's not like that. Okay, usually contract is being awarded. When we mention time is at large, usually contract is awarded already, and in fact, site possession is given already. and contractor can do the work. Maybe the rights of way is not being negotiated, meaning that you've got obstructions that you cannot go into the site to work. And in this situation, the clock is ticking already. But there is some obstructions here, or along the route, certain parts cannot be done. So you have to re-look at the completion date now. So then we call it time is at large. Okay, so usually if there's a prolonged, of course there will also be a situation where there's a prolonged, meaning that the contract is being signed, but site possession is not given at all. Okay, why? You may ask me why I got such a situation. Like I said just now, it could be part of the site, it could be rights of ways, but the client side will say, clean cut, let's not give site possession, let's not give notice of award first, just hang it on first, okay? Hang it up first, because otherwise too complicated later. So then that one is, the whole site is not given, the possession is not given, so you cannot go and work. So what they will do is, the contractor will wait. So contract is still there, you still award with the contract. Then site possession is not given, but you're waiting and waiting and waiting. You go like, ayo, 6 months already, how come it's not given to us yet? And then you are being stuck in a situation whereby, you don't know if you should be still committing to the contract or not. And that is whereby we have to activate time is at large, because it's too long already. Okay, so of course that will be a letter, a notice to be given by like contractor can give the builder service provider can give the time to the client and say that this is getting too long. I have to move on to other things, and let's put this as time as at large until you resolve the issue. So then we will have to come back and maybe renegotiate the contract date all over again later on, even though the contract is being signed already. Okay, so that is a few situations here whereby we will have issues with site possession, rights of ways, and also time is at large. Okay. Any questions so far? Are you all falling asleep already?
No question.
No question. Okay.
Doctor,
Mm.
so from what I understand, so project start doesn't mean that contract start also.
If we look at project as a definition from the initiation onwards, no, it's not the same thing. But if we look at project as a point from the contract, as in the activities of the project, the construction or the contract start date, then that project can be used interchangeably with the contract start.
So is it the same if like site possession is equal to contract start also?
Site possession, yes. I mean, on the contract start date itself, there must be a very specific notice to proceed, which is site possession.
Okay.
Then the date will start.
Okay. Understood.
Okay. So, like I said, from now on, we're using project, the word project, as in the project activities, which means the delivery. Okay. So if we use the word project delivery, so the project start date should be the contract start date, should also be complement with the notice to proceed, which is site possession. Okay. So that means the clock starts to tick. Contract signed, possession given, notice to proceed given. So that is the contract start. So this date is critical, is crucial. Okay, because when the project duration it started to count based on the start date. So if you have a 12 months project, if 15th of March is your contract start date and the notice to proceed start date, the contract will start. 12 months later, okay, it will be 14th of March. You must complete the project, or you must complete the delivery part of the project. Okay, so that will be the start date. And the implication is a lot of things. Implication is the duration, implication is the delay, implication is the EOT damage. Not a lot of things will be defect liability period, start date, you know, and all that. That one, maintenance date and all that, it will pretty much be one of the most crucial things. So we've got to get it right. Okay. So contract start date has to be complement with the notice to proceed. If there's no notice to proceed, okay, contract is signed, but no notice to proceed, you wait. Okay, you wait until site possession, and that will be the start date. So notice to proceed is actually, if I were to look at it that way, notice to proceed will actually be the start date. Okay. So there are events that, you know, mostly, like I said, 90% of the time is the same. Contract start date and notice to proceed, which is site possession, is on the same day. Handover, we call it site handover. But there are situations whereby the site possession is delayed due to many, many reasons. Like I said, land ownership, rights of way, or they're still dealing with some issues with submissions, or approval from authorities, and all that. So site possession has to be formally given. Then your contract will start. And if you later on ask for EOT, okay, that there's a delay. Okay, maybe if I put it in a calculation format, it's a lot easier. So if I sign a contract with you on the 15th of March, with notice to proceed and site possession given and site is being handed over. If my project is 12 months, it will be 14th of March 2026 that I need to hand over the site back to the client with the project activities all completed, project is delivered. Then there will be no delay, no EOT incurred. Okay, so now there's a situation. I sign a contract, okay, and the possession is not given. It will be given, say, 1 month later or 2 months later. Okay, the contractor cannot move in because you haven't possessed the site yet. You cannot mobilize at all. Okay, so let's say 2 months later is 15th of, say, May. Okay, I'm finally being given a notice to proceed. My start date of the contract is 15th of May. It's not 15th of March. Understand? Yeah? Understand or not?
So 15th of March can be the start date.
15th of March is only the contract signing date, but there is no notice to proceed. So the completion date will be based on the notice to proceed date, which is the site possession date. You may argue that I've already signed the contract. But because there's no site possession, you cannot count that. You understand or not? So essentially, the start date is marked by site handing over, or site possession, or notice to proceed. Legally, that will be the start date. So let's say if I work until 15th of May, 14th of May, and I hand over the site, and you as a client want to charge me LAD for 2 months, we can go to court. So you cannot say that because I signed a contract with you on the 15th of March and possession comes on the 15th of May, these 2 months you're not doing anything. There's nothing wrong with that because I have no site possession. If the site handing over is the site handing over is getting later and later and later, like until like half a year still haven't got the site, then contractor can even activate time is at large, meaning that look, you know, we have to renegotiate later on. I'm going to put everything on hold now. You cannot give me the site. Nothing has started. Time is at large. Let's wait until your site is ready. Then you let me know. We come back and we renegotiate the site possession date. I mean, we negotiate the completion date and the project duration. So everything will have to be renegotiated. It cannot be just applicable like originally 12 months. Now I give you also 12 months. No, because when time is at large, everything can be renegotiated, especially the completion date. Because the situation is different now. You know, it's like for example, the pandemic, you know, you really don't know when you can give possession because of the pandemic. Or, for example, you know, everybody, because of the MCO, everybody have to move out from a site. And nobody can do any work. So essentially, even though the possession was given, then you cannot go back to work anymore. So if you can, I mean, if it's prolonged, then its time is at large. You cannot charge people LAD when this is already very clear that there is this issue here, when time is at large, when it is a prolonged, unknown, no ending kind of returning back to work. Are you okay? I mean, I don't want you to be confused, you know, but I don't think it's a very difficult way to understand, okay? Contract signing is contract signing. That is what we call contract date. When you mark that contract date, you sign the agreement on the 15th of March, usually it's the same. You can use that contract date because on the same day, the site is being possessed by the contractor. Which means you hand over the site. So everything, that is a start date, everything in the contract is activated now. So if there's an event that start on the contract signing date, site possession cannot be given, then the contract date, start date, will be based on the site possession date. That is when the client will write to the contractor and say, now you are given the notice to proceed. Site is being handed over to you to carry out the work. Yes, you don't go back and re-sign the contract and change the signing date, but the contract date itself will be the site possession date. Understand? Anyone else still confused here? Maybe too much information, maybe. Just now, who asked the question again? I didn't get your name because I was looking at the screen, sharing screen.
Me, Dr. Zahra.
Zara, huh? So are you clear about this?
Yes, I'm still processing all the information.
Okay. I think for those of you who are practicing for a while already, this is not a difficult thing to understand. But I also want to mention in a lot of general conditions of contract, there is another wording there that may be actually a bit confusing is the mobilization date. Okay. Normally, what the contract will say that the contractor needs to give notice to the client regarding their possession date. Regarding their mobilization date. And usually there will be like an interval of a few days for them to, you cannot say that I'm going to the site tomorrow. Like let's say if after I sign the contract, and on the same day the notice of site possession is given, or the notice to proceed is being given already. Okay. Yes, the start date of the contract started already. Project start date, contract start date started already on that date because site is being handed over already. Okay, there's a formal documentation about notice to proceed. Then contractor will not go to site tomorrow straight away. So normally it will take them a period of time. Okay, it will give them a period of time to actually apply for insurance, get their performance bond. They will prepare. And insurance is not like you buy straight away tomorrow, they can give you. So without insurance, you're not supposed to mobilize as well. So usually there will be about another 14 days or maybe sometimes a month. But this particular date here is at the expense of the contractor's clock, not at the expense of the client. Meaning that when the possession of site is given, the handing over is being done already. Okay. Then you have you go and buy insurance, and then it takes you a bit too long. It takes you 30 days. And then once you got that, then you write to the client and say that, we are mobilizing when in 3 days time, in 7 days time, From the contractor's point of view, you cannot come from both side point of view, mobilization date is not a contract date, That one is very, very certain one. When you mobilize and how long it takes you to mobilize, that one is the expense of your own. So if it takes you too long to mobilize, that is your problem. And of course, client side will be concerned. I give you possession already, or on the 15th of March. How come until 15th of April, I haven't seen you come to site? You're not doing anything on site. Something is wrong, is it? So a lot of clients will be very worried if they don't see activities on site very soon. Yeah. But this delay here, if it happens to be a delay, then there must be a very, very good reason for that delay. Okay. If the contractor said that, I don't have enough manpower, or I'm still applying for performance bond, or I'm still applying for insurance, that one usually is not a very good excuse for you to give them extension of time, because that is their responsibilities. They have to find an efficient insurance company to actually give them, or they themselves have issue with a lot of other insurance company, and then they cannot buy insurance, or they are being blocked or being blacklisted from buying insurance and all that. That would be the contractor's own problem, not a problem with the project or the possession or whatever. Okay, so then the contractor has to be responsible for that delay in the period if you are actually delaying yourself. Basically, they're delaying themselves if they don't go and mobilize as soon as possible. So, but my point here is mobilization date is not possession date. Okay, it's not a contract date. So even though the contractor may say, I only come to site 1 month later, that one cannot be counted as a contract start date. The contract start date is strictly notice to proceed, which is usually corresponding with the contract signing date. Or another word is site handover date. Some of you may experience also that you have a contract signing, the date is being chopped and signed. Okay. And there is a not there you're not being given a notice to proceed. But the notice to proceed comes like maybe within a month, whereby you have your first site site meeting or first coordination meeting. This is a very blur thing. Some clients like to do things like that. Okay, and then but they still fall back on that contract signing date. That is actually not right. It's supposed to be whenever you have that proper handover, that will be the date of the contract. And it should be recorded, even though in terms of contract date itself, like the contract signing date itself, a lot of people like to look at the contract signing date. This is something that I want you guys to be very careful of. Don't say that, like I said, some agency, because they contract signing date is like a big event thing, like you have people coming in to the YB coming in and do order of this macam-macam thing, and then it's being signed already, the contract. Okay, but legally supposed to be, if a case of damage or a case of claims or whatever, the date that we should be looking at is actually site handover or site possession or notice to proceed. It's not going to be the signing date. So sometimes because of the hoo-ha event thing, they may make the site meeting maybe a week later or a month later kind of thing. And then they formally hand over a site a month later. Technically, if the contractor is smart, they will say that is a date, It's just that sometimes they're not being too mean about it. Okay lah, like we take it as a trust kind of thing, and we just go on and get, let their YB already all signed, everything is already all done. I will go and buy my material, I will start to buy my insurance and all that, even though the meeting comes a month later or or 10 days later or 20 days later. Sometimes if it's just a week or two later, nobody really cares lah. They will just put it as that date. They will just base it on the signing date as well, but if you have a very, very smart contractor, they would know that, when we have the first meeting, you only hand over me the site on that day. They could request you and say that, please put that as a date, and there's nothing wrong with that, legally it's right, So if I would put it very, 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 very bottom line, is possession date. Is the date that you give site handing over to the contractor. Means that you give the right for them to come into your site. That is the date of contract start. Legally, okay? Like I said, I'm explaining in the many situations that could happen, and sometimes people treat it wrongly, and that's why contract administrator is not a very easy job in that sense. It's always nothing, but then when later on, when there's an issue, when the contractor is fighting for EOT, and then they will bring up all these things, and then there is a problem here. Then if you fight to the dispute to the court and all that, then expert witness will come in and write the definition, and then you'll be on the losing side. That's why a lot of client agencies, a lot of government agencies, a lot of time, because of their own efficiencies, they're not following the proper SOP. And then when there is a dispute, you can see a lot of government agencies are actually on the losing side because of them not following the actual procedures properly. Yeah. It's just that because they are government agency, a lot of contractor and consultant don't sue them because they don't want to be blacklisted from their future job. That's all. But if you do have a field that is really hardcore, die, wear helmet one, then they may just say, okay lah, sue lah, fight lah. Who don't have money, fight with you lah, So there's a lot of things here that sometimes is by respect, by grace, I personally never want to activate contract until it's really no chance of people talking nicely to one another If possible, then we don't activate all these things It's actually quite time consuming, quite cost consuming, and in the end you don't get much out of it anyway, except for the fact that and most of these cases are actually not not kind of what we call do or die kind of cases, that will actually be resolved very quickly. So it will take a long time to resolve. So many other impact will come in if we do have dispute lah. Okay, so yeah. So we're clear about that. So I will try to rearrange my notes a little bit more to see if I can make it a little bit clearer for everybody. So in the end, rights in the end, notice to proceed, site possession, these are the important date. And then on the other end, if I were to look at one straight line, contract signing, site possession, and also site mobilization, or to start working, or you turn on the factory, it's just like, if let's say you own a factory, for example, you sign a contract on that day, okay, and then you're given a notice to proceed on that day. And then you take time to buy your material, to import, and then to get your machine or to get your specific parts and all that, and you start your production. The production date is basically a mobilization date. So that production date is not your contract date. You cannot say that just because I turn on the machine and start working on that day, that is the contract date. Legally, the contract date will be the contract signing with the notice to proceed together, or based on the notice to proceed. Okay? And there may be circumstances that notice to proceed will come with what we call deposit payment or advance payment or commitment fee. So this is a situation that I think some consultant will experience, and sometimes some manufacturer will experience. If you haven't paid, even you sign the contract, you haven't paid the commitment fee, we don't count that as the date. So it's only when the commitment fee is being paid, then the contract date will start. That will be a more stricter definition of the start date of a contract, of the project delivery activities. So I hope you guys are clear about all this. Okay, we take it slowly, no rush. Okay, because it's better to enjoy the class, understand things that is going on here, and then we can slowly learn and understand the parts carefully lah. And of course, with the completion date, with the start date, you have completion date lah. Completion date, of course, there is a lot of definition with completion date as well, and it's also very complicated when it comes to completion date, because sometimes when you say that your work is complete, usually it will mean that the project is being delivered already, and normally it's being marked by there must be a very strict definition about the completion, because basically there is a lot of implication here. It's a release of contractual obligation. It's about client being able to hand over the houses to the buyers, or the product is being delivered. There must be a very specific on what do you mean by completion. Okay, if you don't get that right, it could actually means further dispute like delay, EOT, and also LAD later. So completion date, normally we want to know, both parties should understand that definition. If let's say, for example, treatment planner, pipeliner, would probably understand as the chlorination test completed. So then you must have that very technical definition. I would suggest that, or if you're doing housing projects, or it has to be fit for its intended purpose. It must meet certain requirement, and then that certain requirement is being specified out very clearly to the builder. Because the builder may say that I complete, but then if the door is not pasang, the toilet is not pasang, then how can this be completed? Because there must be a definition of, my house buyer can move in, and start to do the activities or start to do business, for example. So there must be some form of strict definition. It cannot be just the word work complete. And what do you mean by work complete? This is really something that is, from my years in the industries as well, I think I see that as an issue lah. Like road, like that. Is it defined by the car can start to use the road? You know, like when doing ART, does it mean by the ART can start to pick up people, you know, function carefully? And again, sometimes the confusion comes in because there may be confusion with the quality of work and all that. Yeah. So I think the best normally is we define that with some form of testing and commissioning. For engineering, like I say, the best is testing and commissioning. You know, so it means that tested, try out, can work, and then we can define that as. This is only a suggestion now. Like I said, different contract they may have different level of requirement. Maybe like gas pipeline, they have very, very different. What do you mean by completion? You know, like if you build a tank or you build a nuclear plant, the definition of completion has to be a lot more stricter than something else, you know, or just a house or just a road or just a drain, you know, or sewage pipeline and all that. So, but normally, like I say, we will say testing and commissioning as the day you pass your testing and commissioning. And because testing and commissioning usually are attached with some form of numbers and figures, so it's a little bit easier for you to say, yeah, this passed already, and therefore we can issue you with certificate of practical completion. So it's only upon the receiving certificate of practical completion, we basically have completion. Then the project, I won't say project completion date is a date of certificate of practical completion. Yes, it is usually the date of certificate of practical completion, but the argument here is, I could say, me as a contractor, I finish the job, I deliver the material, the testing and commissioning, I finished the job. Okay, I finished the job on the 15th I finished testing and commissioning on the 15th of March 2026. Okay, but the CPC is only issued like 2 weeks later. Then you may ask, so are we going to be based on the CPC date on the 30th of March 2026, or are we going to be based on testing commissioning date? It should be, the CPC date should be backdated to that date whereby all of you agree that the work is completed, and that is the completion date. Anything after that is considered as delayed, and then you can charge LAD, or you need to apply for extension of time. So these are all a lot of definition involved. So when you are handling contract, be very clear about definition. Okay. So there may be a lot of like other definition like fit for its intended purpose. Then you and I may have a bit of a difference in fit for its intended purpose. You see, so it doesn't mean that no obvious defects, doesn't mean that there's no outstanding work, and what can be lumped under defect liability period and what should not be lumped under defect liability period. There's a lot of definition here, you know, that can be considered, that can be emphasized for completion. And that is something that as all engineer, as contract administrator, we have to be very clear. If we mean testing commissioning, does not mean that the client comes and say that, oh, I'm not satisfied, got crack, get this, got that. No, you know, you cannot change that definition. Okay. So if your definition is this, everything is functionable, then functionable. What do you mean by functionable? Then anything beyond that should not be considered for your definition of that. I mean, for your completion date. So we try to be as clear, but different project, like I said, different project like manufacturing, car manufacturing, TV manufacturing, electronics good manufacturing, and also telecommunication, you know, all these things, they all have their own like if you're building a communication tower or doing a communication plant or energy transmission and all that, you have your own specific definition. But the thing is, I think what a lot of people lacking a lot of dispute. A lot of things lacking is that definition. So civil project also, there's a lot of drainage, sewage, road, buildings. So what do you mean by complete? And that will actually means the completion that has to be based on that agreement on the completion of work, meaning the delivery of the project. Then we can start our defect liability period, which is another time in a contract, another time elements within the contract. Okay. All right. So I think I just want to stop here today because I think there's a lot of things to digest already. And let me clean up a little bit part of my notes as well. Then I will post it up and then we can continue back with, let's say you pass the completion date. So now we've got some definition going on here, a lot of definition going on here. So you digest that first, take the notes and digest that first. And then when we come back, the following class, then we will move on into, if we don't meet the completion, that will be into delay, and then we'll be into another elements of delays, EOT, assessments of delays, and then whether EOT should be granted or not. Again, that is always a big thing in any contract for any engineer, for any contract administrators. And then in the end, LAD and how do we charge LAD and all that. That will basically complete the time, okay? But let's end it up with working program. Normally, for any contract, contractor will be asked to submit any working program, okay? Working program for you to submit to the client. And client usually will put it very clearly that even though I give you the room to propose the program, you need to give it to me for approval, okay? And then that approval does not come with responsibilities, meaning that even if I approve you this date, and then in the end, I'm not responsible for my approval. I mean, that is usually the practice. And it's fair enough, you know, as a client, we give contractor your chance to propose your way of working, your WBS, your project duration, and you bring it to me. I comment. I say that maybe this is a bit too long, maybe this is a bit too short. And after I comment, you change, and then I approve you. So we use back that working program, monitor using that working program, but clients normally will not be held responsible for the approval. The contractor cannot say that, oh, you agree late, and therefore you must give me EOT now because you agree on this date. You know, it's not like that. Okay, so that is to be fair lah. Principally, you know, client is giving contractor that freedom to plan your work, and obviously, client also cannot meddle into the management of the contractor. If the contractor said, I can do this within these 2 months, you can have your reasonable doubt, you know, and you say, are you sure, you know, like you don't want to lengthen this a little bit, you know, you can advise, you can, you know, you can propose, you know, if they don't want to accept, you also cannot force them, okay? Again, many things clients have to leave it to the contractor because you have different builders, different service providers, they have different ability. You've already picked them as your best ideal person to do the delivery of the project for you, so you don't want to meddle. You're not supposed to meddle too much into their way of doing things, unless, but you know, you have rights with penalty later. If they don't do it, you can terminate, you can suspend, there's so many things that you can do to help yourself, but meddling into their planning is not something that you should be doing. Okay, so normally as client, we will advise, this is not reasonable. Do you think you can shorten this, or do you think you can lengthen this? You know, that approval does not come with meddling, or that approval does not come with a hard-handed way of forcing the contractor to do, or the builder to do something according to you. Okay, like I said, there is other remedies in the contract for you to help yourself. Okay, so you must give them that room, freedom to come up with their own way of managing the project. But if they didn't do a good job, you have other way to help yourself. But then the contractor also cannot say that because you approve my project timeline, and you have to be responsible for the approval as well. That is not fair also. So this is a two-way thing, huh? So with working program, usually you'll be asked to submit, and that working program will be used by the client to plan for their finances, to plan for S-curve, to plan for monitoring work, to plan for their reporting to the higher agencies and all that. So timelines are usually being mandated in the contract that the contractor must plan. It's a way of seeing their work breakdown structure. It's their way of seeing their duration, whether it's reasonable, whether it's deliverable, and then whether in the end it's doable, it's reasonable or not. Okay. And then you comment on that, and that will be used for S-curve, for financial, for physical, for monitoring purpose planning, and then many coordination meeting later will be based on that working program and or critical path diagram if it's being asked for. Okay, S-curve as usual, it will be part and parcel of the working program will be used as to create the S-curve later on as well. Yeah. So, and then if you want to use EV technique, what we mentioned in project management last semester, then that is also part and parcel of the working program. So with time, start date, completion date, definition, time, date, and also the working program, these are all very initial part of project. It's project timeline, it's project start date, end date. So it's pretty much of project management, it's pretty much of contract management as well. Okay. All right. Any question?
No from me, Prof.
Okay. So are you all luput already lah, huh? So okay, have a good rest, and then anyone else need attendance again? No, right? Or there's somebody else who wants to do attendance. Done already? No. All done already. 18. Okay, can. All right. So tomorrow morning, Dr. Ambrose class, finish up on legislation. Ask him as many questions as you can because he is an expert in terms of acts and all that. Yeah. See if you can learn a lot of things, especially on building and land code. I think that is something very, very relevant in Sarawak. And as engineers, I think that will be so good. Even mechanical, electrical people is really important for you to know building codes as well. Okay. All right. Yeah. So then tomorrow afternoon after class, you guys can do whatever you want. I will come back. You want to come back later, or you want to come back at 3 p.m. to do your attendance?
Okay.
Okay, so you let me know lah, tomorrow lah, whether you want to do your attendance at 3. Some people may be flying off already at 5 or 6. Then maybe we do it at 3 lah, but if some of you are already out, maybe let's say you are out after class for lunch, and then you're not at home, then you prefer to do it at 5:30 or 6 also can. Okay, you decide tomorrow lah,
Okay, doctor.
But tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock class, we will do attendance around 8:15, 8:20, like that lah, when most people are there already lah. So Clarence, I will contact you tomorrow to open the attendance sheet lah.
Okay, can.
All right. Thank you. See you guys. Everybody have a good Saturday evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, doctor. Have a good rest.
Some people
Thank you,
book up for
doctor.
now already. So better let
Thank you,
everybody off.
doctor.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Hi, Dr. Ting.